What's good? It's a boy dude reviews and Harry Potter. I love it. I've always loved this series. I love the books. I love the films. Like I grew up with these films and they are a big part of my childhood and they're just so enjoyable to rewatch over and over again. Although I do prefer the books, the movies are just a different thing altogether. But what is my favorite film and what is the worst one in the series? Well, let's do my top, well not top 8 because there's only 8 films. All 8 Harry Potter films ranked from the worst to the best. I'm going to be like kind of like ranking which films I think I prefer in terms of visual aspects, like how well the acting is, cinematography, and just the story overall, and like how well like the movies adapted the films. Because after reading the books, my opinions on the movies have changed slightly. So, yeah, obviously, without further ado, let's get on with it. Now, coming at last place and at number 8 is the Half-Blood Prince. Now, I really did like the cinematography of this film because I think it had like the best opening sequence with like the Death Eaters kind of like causing a lot of terror in London and just going insane. Like I've really loved all that as well. I also did like the whole Harry and Dumbledore relationship in this film. Like Daniel Radcliffe has really like matured into this role and he's just, he's like so much cooler and better as well. I really did like them just trying to discover why this dude Voldemort is just he keeps coming back and what is his true power. And yeah, the cinematography and the acting is really great and it's a pretty fun film. But I think it can be a little bit too fun at times because the reason why this film is at last place is because this film, I feel like, centers way too much on the romantic elements in, even though in the book there is the romance stuff, I feel like it was never the main focus. Like reading the books, there was a lot more like investigating Voldemort's backstory, trying to figure out what these Horcruxes are and all that stuff. But I feel like with this film they did do that, but it kind of felt a little bit, a little bit hollow at times. It didn't feel great, and the whole Half Blood Prince reveal was a little bit of a letdown, to be honest with you. It kind of came out of nowhere, and it was just kind of like something tacked on, to be honest with you. Number 7, we have got Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1. Now, I do know that this film did adapt the book pretty well. Like, it is part 1 of just one story, but I'm rating it as a film. And yeah, this film, it is a bit dull at times, to be honest with you. I mean, they did do a good job, but it's it is just it feels like it is sometimes people will say that it does feel like filler, but it is setting up for the next film, to be honest with you, and you need to watch this film. But as a film, I didn't really find it all that impressive, to be honest with you. I thought it was kind of meh in my opinion. It just didn't really do a whole lot for me. I did like the whole Ministry of Magic like infiltration, which was really cool. That was my favorite part of the whole film. I also loved the whole Malfoy Manor scene, but all the stuff in the woods and all that stuff wasn't really that great. Plus, again, like the books did do it a little bit differently, but it is what it is, and yeah, I wasn't a fan of it. And number 6 is The Goblet of Fire, and this film, yeah, this was like the first like PG-13 Harry Potter film I ever watched, and I was like 9 when I first watched it, and I probably was a bit too young to watch it, but yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a pretty dark when I watched it as a kid. And this film, I feel like out of all the movies, I think this is probably the best acted film by all the characters, even the side characters. Like, I really felt like all the actors and like just did a really good job like acting. It felt like a lived in world in a way, because I feel like the characters were so used to their roles and I feel like they really embraced it, and it really felt very well acted. It is the best acted film in my opinion, to be honest with you. It also is the film that started to introduce a lot of dark elements and just make Harry Potter into this like not so nice world, because in the first 2 or 3 films it has this like whimsicalness to it, but I feel like all that magic is kind of like gone and it's just this dreary place where you're just pitting students against these horrible tasks and obstacles and people are dying and it's just crazy and insane, to be honest with you. I didn't really like the film because after reading the book, I kind of hated the film even more just because of a whole lot of things they cut and rearranged, and just the things that they left out of the books and they just didn't put in the films resulted in the films feeling a little bit uneven at times, and a lot of plot elements didn't make too much sense, to be honest with you. I also feel like a lot of side characters were kind of pushed to the side compared to the books per se, and but I still like the film overall. I think it had a lot of cool action sequences, and the Voldemort showdown is one of the best showdowns in any of the Harry Potter films, in my opinion. And number 5, we have got Sorcerer's Stone, or the Philosopher's Stone. Wherever you live, it's just called the Stone, the very first one. And yeah, I like this film more than the other ones because it's very nostalgic. The whole color scheme, Chris Columbus's style, like it has this bright, warm glow to it. You feel so cozy when you watch this film. It just invites you into this wonderful, cool, magical world, and you just feel like a kid watching this film, to be honest with you. All the child actors, it's so cool seeing them as little kids and just kind of like seeing how they would grow up in the later films. It's like this is where it all began. I did like the story of it, although it does feel very episodic at times, where the real plot doesn't really kick in until like halfway into the film, but I feel like it makes sense because this is the film that sets up not just the actual story of the movie, but it sets up the entire franchise as a whole, and we needed all that little stuff earlier on in order for the viewers to really appreciate the Harry Potter franchise. I really liked a lot of the characters and the casting choice. I still think Richard Harris is probably, I always preferred him a little bit more than Michael Gambon's Dumbledore, just because when I read the books I imagined him as the Dumbledore instead of the Michael Gambon version, but I still like Michael Gambon. It is what it is. Although the CGI is very dated in this film at times, which can look a bit clunky, overall Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is a wonderful treat with all the family to watch and enjoy. At number 4, we have got Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Yeah, I actually did like this film a little bit more over the first one, just because it got a bit more serious. You know, the CGI improved in this film and there was an actual plot throughout, and it was this mystery, and it was like, what is going on? What is the Chamber of Secrets? Why has it been open? What's going on? Why are these Muggleborns being petrified? This whole mystery on who the heir of Slytherin is, Harry Potter just realizing, is he really a good or a bad person? All this stuff, and it just kind of the events of this film is kind of a big setup for future events, which I really did like. And Kenneth Branagh, who does Gilderoy Lockhart, man, he's a prat in this film. He is a bit of a prat. Also, all the boys' voices are just completely dropped in this film, which was a bit jarring compared to the first film, even though they look more or less the same. They filmed this film back to back with the first one, so they all look more or less the same in this film, to be honest with you. Twist at the end, as a kid, I didn't really get it until probably the 7th rewatch, and I was very surprised, and yeah, it was great. Although the basilisk battle does go on for a bit too long, you still have a lot of fun with this film, and I feel like the first 2 Harry Potter films are just so nostalgic and so whimsical in this film. At number 3, without a doubt, we have Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Yeah, this film used to be my number 1 film in the Harry Potter series for many years, just because Alfonso Cuarón just coming in and just kind of he absolutely set the tone for the rest of the Harry Potter films, made this dark look to it. This is where the movies where the cast started to age a lot, and you really do see them mature in their roles, and just the look of the film has this dark look, even though it still has that whimsical fantasy element to it, but it feels more mature and grounded and serious. I always loved this film just because of the way it looked. I loved the story, the whole time travel stuff. There was a lot of fun comedy in it, and there's a lot of great stuff in it, to be honest with you. But then something happened. I read the books. And when you read the books, your opinions change, my dude. Your opinions absolutely change. And when I read the book of Prisoner of Azkaban and rewatched the film, I didn't like the film at all. I was very disappointed rewatching it. In fact, I kind of disliked a lot of elements in the film just because of how the book portrays a lot of stuff and the way the characters are kind of like introduced. Like there's a lot of characters that appear in the fourth and fifth film that actually are introduced earlier, but we get a lot more time with character development in the book version of it. And the movie is still really good for what it is. I love the night bus sequence, I loved all that stuff, a lot of just really cool stuff like the Buckbeat flight sequence. The soundtrack by John Williams was all really great, but I just think I preferred the way the book did it in a way, and as a film it was a bit of a letdown in my opinion, but I still love it anyway. Number 2, Harry Potter and Deathly Hallows Part 2. This film, what a grand finale to this Harry Potter film series. Like, it was epic, it was brutal, it was sad, it was epic, it was emotional. It was just everything culminating into this one film. Like, the final battle being at Hogwarts. This is where I think this is probably like one of the best looking like cinematic films in the Harry Potter series. It was just great. A lot of twists and turns with the characters. Harry Potter just trying to understand his destiny and what he needs to do. Just seeing a lot of like some characters that we've grown to love just be killed off is just very sad, and just it really killed a bit of that childhood innocence. I loved how the film starts and we have like the whole Gringotts Spank escape on the dragon, the Horcruxes and all that. I really love watching this film in the cinema. It was the first and only Harry Potter film I watched in the cinemas, excluding the Fantastic Beasts films. And yeah, like the characters really did feel a lot more mature. I feel like the acting was like, for them, like they really wanted to nail it, to be honest with you. But I will admit, like some of the side characters, I feel like the acting was a bit not hokey, but it wasn't as good as previous movies. Like the way they acted, I wasn't that much of a fan. There was a lot of like awkward pauses in this film, like a lot of awkward moments that I kind of wasn't digging, to be honest with you. The whole Harry and Ginny relationship, I should have mentioned that in the Half-Blood Prince, just didn't do it for me, to be honest with you, because I feel like their chemistry and their connection in the books are so much, there's so much there, but it feels a bit tacked on in these films, to be honest with you. So it does feel a little bit strange at times, to be honest with you, but it is what it is. But number 1 is a movie that I never liked the first time, but I think this time round I really appreciate it, and that's The Order of the Phoenix. It's the best film because let's go back in time when I first watched these movies. The 4 films, 1 to 4, they were the movies that I grew up with. They were the films I was used to. This movie was the first new Harry Potter film I watched, and I guess I really wasn't vibing with the style and the darkness of it, and just seeing the characters age so much in this film. I missed how they looked like as kids, because I was a kid at that time and they were so much older than I was in the film, so it did throw me off a little bit. But rewatching this movie, I feel like it's probably the best adapted movie. Ironically, it's the shortest Harry Potter film and it's the longest book, but for some reason they seem to capture the vibe of the book so much better. I will admit the book is still better because there's a lot of aspects in that book that I did like, but I feel like the movie did its own version and it just did it in a way that I really enjoyed. It is the funniest film in the Harry Potter film series. It's also the most dramatic. Like it does feel like it's kind of like not a setup, but it's kind of giving you a taster of the finale in a way. Like it's a little taster of what's to come. I love how like we get to see more of Neville, we get to see more of Ginny. Luna's in the mix as well. It's just so great, and all of that stuff is great. Dolores Umbridge is probably the most cruelest villain in the whole film series. I mean, Voldemort is just a psychopath, but this woman is just, she's a nutcase. Like, oh my gosh, she is just crazy, like abusing these kids, like kind of torturing them, like with the quill ink. Like that, damn, that was just uncalled for, to be honest with you. And the book, like, I feel like all the characters are absolutely portrayed to a T in this film. Like I feel like the acting's on point, like all the characters feel very consistent and all that. It's just a really fun film. I also like the way it looks as well. It has this nice kind of like color scheme. It has a nice vibrant gloss to it. Like it reminds me of like the first 2 Harry Potter films where it kind of had that warmness to it. It does have that feel to it at times, but it still has more dramatic moments as well, to be honest with you. So I feel like in the 4th film, where the magic was kind of gone in a way, this film the magic is, it's kind of back in a way. It's kind of, it feels like a return to form in a way. It feels like the original Harry Potter films, but it feels more mature. And I just like the way it was told, to be honest with you. It was dramatic. Harry, oh gosh, that dude, him not being able to talk to Dumbledore and all that jazz was just great. But the Dumbledore and Voldemort fight scene was just epic, and I loved it, dude. And so far, until my opinions on these films change again in the future, this is my favorite film in the Harry Potter film series. But what is your favorite? Tell me in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe for more movie reviews and all that jazz and rankings. With that said, thank you for watching. As always, Border Review signing out.